Hi, my name's Steve Hill from the YouTube channel Exeter Rider. I enjoy filming anything related to motorcycling, including interviews, bike reviews and workshop content.
Welcome to the Real Riders podcast. My name's Simon Josie and this is a podcast about motorcycling and filmmaking. If this is your first time here, welcome and thanks for listening. As you heard, my guest for today's episode is YouTuber and motovlogger Steve Hill from the YouTube channel Exeter Rider. We'll get to my chat with Steve shortly. First of all, however, I need to remind you that the 2027 edition of the Adventure Motorcycle Film Festival has launched, and we are now taking submissions via our FilmFreeway page. Tickets for the festival are not yet on sale, but will be soon. Keep an eye on www.advmotofilmfest.com and the festival's Instagram account for the latest information. You'll find all the links in the show notes. Don't forget, you can find the Real Riders podcast on Instagram, where I post, amongst other things, trailers for each new episode. And if you want to know what I've been watching recently, I occasionally post about that on Blue Sky. Links for both the Instagram and Blue Sky accounts can be found in the show notes. Finally, if you want to help keep the servers running, pumping out the episodes, you can now support the podcast via Buy Me a Coffee donations. I have a few operational costs associated with hosting and remote recording infrastructure, and any donations go towards paying for those. The link is in the show notes and also in my Linktree, which you can find in my Instagram, Blue Sky, and YouTube account profiles. Righto, let's get to my talk with Steve. Hi, Steve. Welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining me today. How are you?
I'm very well, Simon. Thank you so much for having me along. I've been looking forward to this for a little while now. So, yeah, it's going to be exciting.
Excellent. I was actually thinking, because we had what I call a tech check call the other night, and where we just got on to make sure that the technology was working properly and got you comfortable with the system. And we talked for well over an hour, which is not really, it's usually just a 10-minute thing. And we just talked about so much stuff. I thought, well, we probably could have just recorded that conversation and that would have been the episode. Yeah. And my job would have been done.
It was a good chat. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay, so that's about as flash as my small talk gets. If anyone's familiar with the podcast, it's not my strength. So I'm going to jump in with the first question. Which is, you've been publishing content to your YouTube channel since March 2019. And at the time of recording, there are 544 published videos on the channel. What prompted you to start the channel, and what's kept you going for more than 7 years?
Okay, so it goes back quite a long way, actually. It started out with a business which I started in 2016, somewhere around there, which was a product which I designed and manufactured for electricians. It was basically from a health and safety point of view, and it was a product which took me about a year to 18 months to sort of design and get to market. It took off, it did really well, but unfortunately it reached a point where I was exhausted and I just couldn't seem to properly get it to take off. I didn't have the skills and the marketing skills to do that. In between time, my brother, he was a filmographer anyway, a professional filmographer, he was doing some filming for me, and I thought, you know what, I want to do this myself. So I started filming it badly. I was nowhere near the level that he was because I had so much to learn anyway. But what it did was it helped me move forward with the product and get it out there. In between time, I actually closed that off in the end. I finished it. And main reason being really is that I just couldn't take it to the next level. I didn't have the skills. And I knew that as soon as somebody else got hold of that product, they could literally run with it because it wasn't patented. I never went down that road because of the cost and also the legal implications. If somebody did take it on, it would cost thousands for me to take them to court and all the legal side of it. So But I'm always been a firm believer that when that door closed, another one opened. And by that time, I had the skills, and I already had the other hobby, which was obviously motorcycling. So I stuck a camera to my helmet one day, which was the Drift Ghost, which filmed in 1080p. And I pushed record, and it literally went from there. And then I got the bug for filming motorcycle content.
I'm guessing, and correct me if I'm wrong, that your enthusiasm for motorcycling is the motivation behind the YouTube channel. Now, that may seem obvious to most people, but I don't think it necessarily is. For example, like I love motorcycling, but I think if I'm honest, it's actually my passion for podcasting which motivates me to keep producing this podcast, not the motorcycling, even though the topic is motorcycling and filmmaking. How did your interest in motorcycling begin?
It goes way back. So I was born in 1977, and in about 1984, my mum took me to a fete in the park, and there were some little Yamaha PW50s. Do you remember those little tiny bikes for kids? And I got on that, and that's my first entry into motorcycling, really. And I just remember going around this track and thinking, this is the best thing I've ever done in my life already.
Yeah.
So much so that when they actually told me to stop and pull in to the side, I just kept going around and around, and the bloke literally had to pull me off of the motorbike to get me to stop. So that's my earliest memory of motorcycling. And after that, my father used to have bikes before I was born. He was very much into bikes. And he always said to me that he doesn't want me having a motorbike before I have a car for safety reasons. Mm. And putting it bluntly, he said, I don't want you to be a twat on a bike like I was, because he was just full throttle everywhere. He just couldn't control himself. So in the end, I got my first car when I was 17. My father helped me out towards that. And it wasn't until I went to Cyprus with my now wife back in 2003, I think it was, where we hired a scooter and went around the island. It was just the best thing ever, as you can imagine, in the sun, on a scooter. It was just brilliant. And after that, I come home and I bought my first bike, or should I say scooter, which was a Honda Dillon 125, which just got me on the road, got my compulsory basic training out the way. And I had that bike for, I think it was 18 months. And after that, I did my main motorcycle training, and I bought a Suzuki Bragman 650 after I completed that. Yeah, and went on from there, really.
So your second bike was the 650. This is something that surprises me quite a bit because, I mean, when I first started motorcycling in New Zealand, I had a 250 and then I had a 550. And in New Zealand, I never got a bike bigger than a 550. In Singapore, which is sort of when I restarted motorcycling, first of all, because they didn't recognize my license, I had to ride something that was less than 200 cc's. And then the next class up was between 200 and 400 cc. And then after that, you could buy, after you'd done the next sort of set of licenses, you could buy a bike bigger than 400. It does surprise me how many riders in the UK seem to go from absolutely tiny bikes up to really, really big, powerful bikes. Now, maybe I'm just old-fashioned and I haven't kept up with the times, but is that something that you've ever thought was a bit odd as well, or does that just seem natural to you?
I do, even more so now that I'm more experienced in biking. I think it's a natural thing. I think when you finish on a 125, you immediately want to go to a big bike, as powerful as possible. But in fact, I personally think that you can get more fun out of smaller bikes, which is very much why I own a Royal Enfield Meteor 350. So I get more fun on that bike than what I do on my Honda NC750 and my BMW R850R. As you know, Simon, I'm lucky enough to have ridden literally hundreds of bikes now.
Yeah.
Everybody's got their own niche. For example, the Honda NC750 isn't for everybody, but it ticks certain boxes for me. It's my best all-round bike. But the bike I really enjoy riding is the Royal Enfield Meteor 350. It's got its own low down torque and power. I just really enjoy riding that.
Yeah. Yeah, I have to admit, I'm not experienced in terms of having ridden a lot of different bikes. Recently, my bike was in the shop and they'd said it was going to be ready by a certain time and it wasn't. And they said, oh, okay, we'll give you another bike you can take home. Because I sort of turned up and said, hey, where's my bike? And they said, well, what do you want? And I said to them, something small. And the smallest thing they had was a GS 900.
Oh, yeah.
F900, I guess. Forgive me for this. I'm terrible at this.
No, the F900, I know the bike, yeah.
Yeah. And that was considerably lighter than my bike, but still not a small bike by any, sense of the word of small. But I was kind of thrilled at riding a much lighter bike than mine, because my main bike, the bike that I ride all the time, is a 1250, and it's enormous and heavy. And just, there's a certain freedom that you get from riding a little bike. There'll be 100 people, 1,000 people screaming at this podcast right now saying, yeah, duh, Simon, light is right. Everyone knows this. But I don't have much opportunity to do that. And I just enjoyed having something for 24 hours that was considerably lighter than my own bike. It was fun. I found that I was able to get comfortable with it very quickly, which I think if I'd been on a bigger bike that I didn't know, I'd be very sort of apprehensive riding a large bike that I didn't know.
And we all do different things with bikes as well, don't we? If you're somebody who does a lot of distance or a lot of traveling, the 1250 is perfect. That's exactly what you need.
Yeah.
And even recently, I've been out to North Devon, where there's a place called Valley of the Rocks, and the people I went out with weren't hanging around, and they were all on GS 1250s and 1300s. There's me on my 750 working a lot harder to keep up with them. But in fact, normally my bike would have been absolutely fine with that. But it's only because they were on bigger bikes and they wanted to get there quickly.
Yeah.
And I didn't. I'm much more of a plodder, really, that I felt it was struggling a bit more. So, but generally speaking, my 750 is fine for me.
Yeah. Well, this is something I've also talked about recently, not on this podcast, but with other people, that I can easily foresee a day when a much smaller, lighter bike will make a lot more sense for me, just because I'm getting older,
Yes.
I mean, heaven forbid I have to pick my bike up if it goes over. I haven't had to do that yet. I'm not planning to do that, but that will be a tough day when I have to pick that bike up. And just maneuvering the bike around, it's so much easier with a smaller bike.
It is, and I think the whole thing with biking really is that you don't want to be thinking too much. And with bigger bikes, you do have to think when you come to a U-turn or you're parking it, you have to make sure it's going the right way, so you don't have to pull it back uphill. Just little things like that, and just getting on a bike and riding and just pulling up it's a nice feeling that you don't have to worry about it too much.
Yeah. The other thing that I remember also when I went from a smaller bike to a big bike was, you had to be really careful. Like, I had a little a Suzuki GSX 250 was my first bike. And I soon learned that, you can't really change gear in a corner because you're likely to lose traction or something. That jerk that, as you change gear, that engine braking, especially if it's wet or something, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. But moving to a bigger bike, that was the thing that I noticed, is it was a lot more tolerant of that kind of behavior, at least the kind of bigger bikes I was riding, because it was the gear shift, the engine braking was a lot smoother. And so if you did do something stupid like change gear in a corner, it was a lot more tolerant of that. But it was a no-go at all with the smaller bike. So I found that the riding a smaller bike, while easier to maneuver, it also taught you certain safety precautions in terms of how you ride, when you change gear and stuff like that. So I thought it was a valuable lesson or experience.
And going back to I guess you've got a BMW 1250, is that right?
I do, yes. Guilty as charged, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people have. But the good thing with the BMWs as well is you got the telelever suspension, which is a massive help. So even when you are doing a tight U-turn, it really looks after you. It doesn't dip in, does it? It holds up steadfast.
Yeah, I think that was the thing I noticed. And I've got an RT, by the way. I'm a little bit odd. I don't have a GS. So that was the thing that I noticed, that even under hard braking, the front wouldn't dip down, or, it just, this is quite odd. I'm grabbing a handful here, and it's not. It's wholly. Yeah, I think there's a lot going on because I'm not a well, I'm an experienced rider, but I'm not a particularly technical rider. Let's put it that way. I think there's a lot going on that I'm probably not aware of that's making that ride a lot nicer. And if I went back to my old 550 or even my old GSX from back in the day, the 250, I would go, oh, this is a bit rubbish, compared to what I'm used to. Yeah.
Can I ask, have you tried the 1300 RT yet?
No, because it's not a dream that I want to have. I love my bike. I own my bike. It's not on, hire purchase
PCP.
Or whatever. Yeah. So I love my bike. I'll probably ride it until I can't ride it anymore for whatever reason. And so I'm very much, as I like to say, a serial monogamist when it comes to motorcycles. I'm not the kind of person who's constantly looking for what bike can I buy now? Oh, that looks nice there, blah, blah, blah. I'm aware that the 1300 comes with the automatic transmission. I'm a little bit curious. Of course, I think it looks ugly compared to my bike, but I always feel that way about new models because after a while I go, oh, yeah, actually looks quite nice. So I'll get over that. But the whole automatic transmission, because I know you talk about it a lot and you're an expert in this, far more expert than me. It doesn't appeal, and I don't know how I would handle it. I just would feel very uncomfortable about not being able to disengage the engine from the transmission. Particularly when I'm maneuvering the bike or when things are a little bit difficult. But I think that you'd get used to it. I mean, how long did it take you to get used to the automatic transmission?
Well, what you don't know, Simon, is that I have actually ridden the 1300 RT, and the video's coming out shortly.
Oh, well, I look forward to that. Cool.
Yeah, so I actually got on there thinking it's not going to be as good as the Honda DCT. And in fact, even when I got on it, it took me about half an hour to make a decision. Do I like it in automatic or manual? And I honestly got on that bike and thought it's got to be a manual bike. It's not going to be right having an automatic. And in fact, it didn't take me long to actually prefer it in automatic. Everybody's different, and I know people that have tried it and they prefer the manual. But the difference between the manual and the automatic on the BMW compared to the Honda DCT platform is that you don't have a clutch at all. You literally go up and down on the gears on the RT, still with a foot lever as opposed to a paddle stick on the left-hand bar. I think they've absolutely smashed it out of the park, BMW, and it could pull a lot of people into the brand, I think, with this new automatic box that they've got. But there's going to be a lot of people that don't like it as well.
Yeah, I mean, as someone said the other day, when was the last time you drove a manual car? Like, we have an automatic car now. The car that we had before the car that we have was automatic. But particularly if you're doing like a lot of around town driving or stop-start, it's brilliant having an automatic. Like, I used to love driving a manual car. There's nothing nicer than that, force down to third, engine braking, changing down.
Absolutely.
I love that feel. I love that sound. But I very quickly adapted to just driving an automatic and loving an automatic. So I think, just this is a long way of saying, I think if I had to ride an automatic motorcycle, I think I would quickly adapt and probably end up preferring it even, possibly.
Yeah. I'd definitely be interested in your thoughts if you did ever have a go, for sure. Because a lot of people do adapt to it, and I think these days cars have become so clinical that it takes the driving out of it, doesn't it? You just tend to arrive from A to B. Yeah. And I think bikes are starting to get a little bit like that as well. Yeah. Because in many ways, I still prefer the 1250 RT that you've got to the 1300, because the 1300 is so tech heavy. I didn't understand it. I only had it for a day, and there's no way I could have learned all the things that I needed to learn about that bike in a day. So, yeah, part of me still prefers the older bikes and the older RTs as well. Even back to the 1200, where it was a proper tractor engine. It was it had a lot more rideability. You felt part of the bike a bit more rather than a piece of the technology.
Yeah, Yeah, I do feel, I have to admit, I do feel sometimes riding on my bike, I am on a bit of a spaceship, because
Yeah.
there's so much wind protection and the dashboard. I mean, the screen is however big. It's, I've seen smaller LCD screens in cars compared to my bike.
Yes.
It is crazy. But as I say, I love it. I love riding it. And I'm lucky enough to live in a part of the world where the roads are generally quite good in most places, and you can find, as I often do, very quiet but lovely roads, and it's just lovely for exploring.
Well, you're leaning on an open door with the RT. I still say it's my favourite bike that I've ever ridden.
Okay. Well, you're now my favourite guest for saying that of all time, Steve. We've done more motorcycle talk in this episode, I think, than I've ever done. So that's some sort of a record. So yeah, well done. I am going to steer it back towards filmmaking, YouTubing, video making. But maybe before we do that, what are you riding these days? What's in the garage?
Yeah, so I've got my Honda NC750X, which is a DCT model. I've had that since 2018, and it's my all-rounder bike, my bike, which I know I'm going to push that button and it's going to start every single time. Also, the storage capacity on that bike, because you've got the where the tank normally is on a bike, as we all know, you've got a storage compartment which is lockable. So quite often, if I'm going out filming for a day, I'll take the NC because I've got my back box and I can put my drone and all the expensive stuff into that lockable storage compartment. Then I have my Royal Enfield Meteor 350, which I've had since, you got me thinking now. I think I've had it for about 2 years now, somewhere around there. A cheap bike, £2,000 it cost me. It was just a no-brainer. It only adds 800 miles on the clock. That is the bike I enjoy riding the most because I just love the way those J-Series engines pull. And then I have my BMW R850R, which is actually off the road at the moment, which is a bike. I got a bit of a love-hate with my BMW.
I have not watched all your videos, but I've already got the sense that you have a bit of a love-hate relationship with that bike, yeah.
Yes, yeah. Every time I start that bike, bearing in mind it's a 1998 model, so it is a little bit crude compared to the models that they've got now. It's a very basic BMW, which in some ways is an advantage because obviously you've got less tech to go wrong. However, I just cannot get that bike set up how I want it to run. Every time I push a button, I think, what's going to happen today? And you kind of think, well, is that a good thing or a bad thing? And to be fair, it's never let me down, but I just wanted to itch that boxer bike thing, really. And I, with finances in the last few years, with the business not collapsing, but I've had to move on from being self-employed. Yeah, that bike was £1,700, which I bought in COVID times, and it still gives me the joy when I am on a good day with it. It still gives me the joy that a boxer engine would.
And how would you describe that joy? Is it because of the positioning of the engine, the fact that the weight's quite low down, or the characteristics of the performance, like the torque and stuff like that?
Yes, it's the torque for me. Yeah, you can chuck it in a really high gear, bearing in mind that my bike is 1998, so it's before the regulations come in with fueling and they started choking the emissions to death. So it's got a brilliant amount of torque, low down. I love the look of the bike as well. It looks like a proper motorcycle should look in my eyes. And it's got all those little technical, mechanical tweaks, like the shaft drive, boxer engines popping out the side. The general feel, it's got the old proper clocks rather than digital clocks as well. I just feel that when they designed that bike, they designed it for me because it ticks all my little boxes that I like to be ticked.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's just, again, it was a cheap bike. It was £1,700. It's brought me a lot of joy, but the more time goes on, it's starting to just irritate me a little bit. It's strange, really. But
Yeah.
Okay,
so that's the motorcycling history. Why also the YouTubing? Apart from what you said earlier, I'd like to know what it is about YouTubing and motorcycling that is a natural fit for you.
So the reason that I got into motorcycling and the YouTube thing is purely because motorcycling came first. That was just something I enjoyed doing. And to be honest with you, I spent a lot of years not really having many motorcycle friends that I could go out with and ride with. When YouTube come along, I wanted to make a diary for myself. It's the same as everybody else, I guess, really. I wanted to make a diary about my motorcycling life and the trips that I went on. Now, what I didn't know at the time was that would open up a huge amount of opportunities to me and a new passion. Now, bearing in mind that what we were talking about with that product that I launched on Amazon went down the hole, it's almost like that door closed and then the YouTube thing started off the back of that. So I had this camera and then I got this weird kind of passion for trying different motorcycles. I wanted to know what each bike rode like and what the differences were. And it just become a real passion project. Yeah, so then I started getting in contact with bike dealers who lent me the bikes, and I just started making basically bike reviews in my own way. And it took off from there.
Right at the beginning, was this connection between making films on YouTube and reviewing bikes, did that happen straight away, or was there a while before those opportunities to make those bike reviews started to occur?
I would say it was a progression, really. It started out small, and I just grabbed the bikes for as long as I possibly could.
Okay.
Then as time went on, I think the dealers saw the benefit of the exposure that I was giving them.
Yeah.
And then before I knew it, the manufacturers were getting in contact with me, and I struck up a relationship with them. And bearing in mind, this is sort of 2022 that it really took off for me after COVID. And I just got bikes thrown at me left, right, and centre. And at times I had 10 bikes in the garage, which was terrifying, really, because some of them were really expensive bikes. You know, I had sort of £100,000 worth of motorbikes in the garage. And I just got such a passion for it. But I also had the time, because obviously I was self-employed at the time. So I could book some time out to actually film them and do a really good job. And back in the day, you were standing on giant shoulders because there was a lot of people doing it, but I just had to find my own way and my own format.
Yeah, because I wanted to ask that because, I mean, obviously you weren't the inventor of the YouTube video that reviews a bike. I mean, as you say, there are a lot of people doing it. And as you referred to them, there were some giants doing it and still are. What do you think it was about what you were doing that allowed you to quickly earn the trust of the dealers and then, as you said later, the actual manufacturers? Why did they start coming to you rather than you having to go to them? What do you think it was about your videos that they liked?
I think, to be frank with you, I just worked my ass off. When I got that bike, I knew that I had to stick out from the crowd. And that's part of the reason why I consider myself one of the first people to do a walk round of the motorcycle, actually stood in front of the bike. And where I live, I'm very, very lucky that in Devon, we have so many beaches, so many backdrops, which is something which I exploited as well. I think the manufacturers like that because it was always a nice, pretty video. They like the fact that you actually saw the presenter rather than somebody walking around with a camera on the front of their helmet. And I'm just your average Joe riding a bike. But as time has gone on, obviously I've been able to get better shots of the bikes as well. Again, my brother has been massive in helping me get in the right shots. For example, instead of standing above the bike with the camera, he said, get down low and you'll get a much better shot of it. Just little nuggets like that is gold when you're an amateur. You know, I'm an amateur now. I'm still learning, as you always are. He's been really such a big help all the way through.
Over the 7 years since you've been doing the YouTube, how has the mix of your content changed? And if it has changed, why?
It's changed a lot because I was essentially at one point in 2022 to about 2024, I was just solid reviews all the time. That's all I'd done. And in fact, as it built, my subscriber base, they wanted to see more of me rather than just the bikes. So over the time, I became more diverse in what and a little bit more random in what I put out now. And one of the things I like about my channel is that my viewers don't know what they're going to get next. It could be a review, it could be a workshop video, or a trip video out with friends, etc. That's something which I really like about my channel, and I think it keeps it fresh for my subscriber base. I put out a video every Sunday at 5 p.m. without fail. I've been doing that for the last 3 or 4 years. Don't ask me how, because it is really difficult. It's a lot of work. But my lot don't know what they're going to get next, and there'll be at least 100 people waiting at 5 p.m. every Sunday waiting for that video. And for me, I like that surprise element, that they don't know what they're going to get, and it seems to work and keeps the channel fresh, keeps it exciting in some respect for the viewer.
For the viewer and for you as well?
Yes, absolutely right. Yeah, it does. Yeah. I like making different sorts of video. I reached a point years ago where I was doing so many bike reviews that it did begin to feel like a job. And it would just become a little bit monotonous, a little bit the same old thing. Whereas now, if I'm going out, for example, with a trip with I got a group of friends, there's about 10 of us that go out. They also become part of the video, and you never know what they're going to say or going to do. So again, that adds an element of mystery as well. And when you put all that together, all those little bits and bobs of, let's say, a 3 or 4 hour trip out, you've got a good 10-minute video in there. You can pick out all the bits, all the best bits and the funny bits, bring it all together, and it makes for a good video.
Is it possible for you to say what type of content is your favorite type of content to make? And it doesn't necessarily have to be the most popular, but what kind of video do you look forward to making more than any other?
That's a really tough question, because I think I like making the videos I like making trip videos overall out with my friends. They're the best ones because you link up with different people, different personalities. But my gut is saying that I really do like doing the review videos, because I like getting the different shots. For example, whether it's with a camera car or that's something which really ticks boxes for me, that I really enjoy doing. Because until you get into the editing suite, you don't know what shots are going to work and what doesn't. But when you get that perfect shot, it's really satisfying.
Yeah. What do your YouTube analytics tell you in terms of the type of content which is most popular with your audience? And when I say audience, I don't necessarily mean subscribers, because there can be subscribers, but then the audience is a sort of a larger set of people, obviously. So yeah, what's most popular with the audience that you've found based on the analytics?
It's definitely bike reviews. That you can't go wrong with a bike review. Everybody seems to want to watch them. It's almost evergreen content as well, because that bike's always going to be around. If you do the latest Honda NC750X video, then you know that people in 10 years' time are still going to be buying that bike secondhand. They will still go back on that video and watch it. But I think for my subscriber base, I think most people prefer to see about me and my personality and going out on a trip, for example, or going to visit somewhere. That's what they want to see. But yeah, it's still bike reviews. It is king, really. That's what pulls in the new subscribers and the best content.
How long did it take you to work out that you needed to put some of your personality on screen? Is that something that you knew right from the beginning, or is that something that you discovered?
Yeah, that's something I discovered, and my subscribers told me that. Yeah, it's basically that if I could make one video, which I don't know, for example, if I went to the beach to eat a pasty, I make videos like that. That quite often people would chime in and say, "We want to see more of this," and it took me a long time to twig onto that. Too long, really. I should have been making those sort of videos a long time ago. But yeah, it did take too long. And I guess I was so in the mode of doing bike reviews and chasing. No, I wasn't chasing the views. I just wanted a successful channel which could stand on its own 2 feet. And to do that, bike reviews was the way forward to get to a certain level. I found that when I got to 10,000 subscribers, it was almost like I climbed that mountain and now it's going to be much easier to walk down it. That's how it felt. And it was a long climb.
Yeah. Yeah. How long did it take to get that first 10,000?
I think I reached 10,000 in about 2023, somewhere around there, maybe 2024.
Okay, so 4 or 5 years, should we say, basically. Okay.
Yeah. It was a constant grind. And I think after that, you reach a point where you realize that YouTube is an infinity thing. You can never get enough subscribers.
Actually, that was my next question. How have you managed this is a presumption on my part, so correct me if I'm wrong, but how have you managed what I think is the inevitable battle that most, if not all, YouTubers or content creators have with obsessing about the statistics, the number of subscribers, the number of views, is that still an obsession? Was it ever an obsession? Or is it something that you're at peace with now?
It was an obsession, for sure. Yeah, it's something that I was always aiming for to get more and a hunger to grow. But for me now, I've reached a point where I still care. I'm not going to be one of those to say I don't care about subscribers or whatever. I still want it to grow because I haven't got, being self-employed for so many years, I don't have a pension. So my idea is that, for example, I at this present time, I get between £200 and £300 a month from YouTube, which isn't bad. And it does kind of pay for the channel. It pays for the podcast fees and all the overheads that you surprisingly get, all the subscriptions that you have to pay for. But I want to reach a point where I can retire and just do YouTube and it pay for itself. So hopefully I'll get to that point, but I'm a long way off of it yet. And if I'm honest, in some ways, I feel like I'm going backwards at the moment because when I was self-employed and had the business, I was earning a lot more money and I had a lot more free time. Whereas in fact, now I've got a proper job. It feels like I'm going backwards. So I'm just trying to find my feet again, really, and get back into the groove of it.
Yeah, I mean, full-time jobs, they take up a lot of your headspace. And
We do.
If you're creating anything, even if it's following a format, you still want to do a bit of experimentation. You need kind of space and time for that creativity. And full-time jobs take up a lot of that time. I mean, you're just exhausted by the end, by the end of the day, and you bring a lot of that home with you as well, I'm sure. And it's difficult to switch that off and think about how I can grow the YouTube channel.
Yeah. I think you do need to be in that YouTube mode, don't you? When you go out to make a video, you need to be a YouTuber and not somebody who's just got home from work, who's knackered, wants to have his tea and just go to bed. You need to have that energy on camera because the camera will pick up everything anyway. If you're having a bad day, it will show, and the amount of videos that I've made, which I've just scrapped because I'm just not in the camera. You've got to be in the camera. And I've had days where I've just haven't been, so I've scrapped a lot of material as well. But yeah, it is definitely more difficult to make videos when you have a full-time job, no doubt about it.
Yeah. Focusing in on the bike review videos, what's your typical process for creating a bike review video?
Yeah, so there's a few different types of formats, really. So often I'll get a bike for a day from the local dealer, which has a different format to when I have a bike for 2 or 3 weeks. So let's start with the first one. So if it's a bike from the dealer, I'll go in, I'll have a shot list, I know where I want to go, and I'll just get on the bike and I'll go. I'll do a quick first impressions. I'll tell people that I've only got the bike for a day. I'm always quite transparent like that, because quite often people will pick up on that, say we've only had it for a day or whatever. So
Yeah.
you got to cover your bum on that side of things, really. So I'll have a shot list, I'll load up the bike, I'll have all in my head, and then off I go. That bit of paper never comes out of my backpack, and it all goes to crap. And basically it just unfolds as the day goes on with that bike. And quite often I'll think, I'll go down to, for example, I've got Exmouth down the road where I can do a walk round, and I'll end up in Sidmouth, somewhere totally different, because of a roadblock or some such thing, or things just kind of evolve. But sometimes they're the best videos because they're the most energetic, because you kind of feel the pressure a bit more to get the shots in. And in the back of your mind, being I guess you could say I'm a filmmaker and to a level, amateur level, you've got that pressure all the time of thinking, is it going to turn out right? Is my sound on? Did I forget to say this? And every single time I do one from a dealer, I'll go home and think that was a disaster. Absolute disaster. It's not until you chuck it into the edit suite that you think, actually, I can do something with this. And that is where the magic happens, on the edit suite. So when I get a bike for long term, it's absolutely wonderful, because I'm not battling the weather. If I get a bad day that day, I'll shoot tomorrow. I'll just sort of juggle things around. It also means, and I cannot tell you how many times I've taken a shot or done a walk round down the beach and it's been a disaster, because you got people coming up saying, oh, what are you doing then? And all that sort of thing. And it means that you can play around with it a lot more, and you can get a much, much better video. And it's very, very easy to make a video if you like the bike. It's an absolute piece of cake. Or if the bike deserves it, even if you don't like the bike, if the bike deserves a good review because it's a good bike, it makes it very, very easy. But when you get a bike which you don't really click with, and I'm going to try and think of one now. Let's think of the Honda Dax. I didn't really click with. It makes it a lot more difficult to make that video. Let's put that against the Royal Enfield Meteor 350 video that I'd done. I loved that bike. I had it for 3 months, and that was a piece of cake to make. It's a hell of a video, some great shots on it. So yeah, having a bike for long term makes all the difference. And as I say to all of the manufacturers, if I like the bike, they're going to get a heck of a video that will sell bikes. And sure enough, that is exactly how it works.
After you've done a ride and captured some footage, what's the time delay typically between coming back home and then looking at the footage? Do you like to look at the footage straight away, or do you prefer to let some time elapse so that you kind of put some distance between your feelings of that ride on that day to when you start actually making the video?
Yeah. So as soon as I finish that video and I've come back home, I don't know if you've seen my turntable that I've got on my drive. I've got a motorcycle turntable which I made, which is really pretty cool. As soon as that turntable goes around, I get in the door, I say hello to the missus, and it's plugged straight into the computer and it's uploading, because I am gagging to see what I've got, footage I've got. So it's instant. How long does it take for me to edit that video? It's different, because I am a firm believer that what you should do is you should edit a video the best you can, bearing in mind that sometimes you've got, let's say, 30 or 40 hours of footage, sometimes if it's a long-term bike review. So you've got to sift through that, get rid of all the chuff in between, get it ready for upload, leave it for a week, go back to it, and you'll find that you can probably get rid of even more chuff. So that's always a good bit of advice for anyone doing YouTube, is to go back on it after you left it for a while. Because quite often I used to put out videos and you just think there's so much dead space in there that should have been cut out. So yeah, that's how I do it now. So yeah, it is pretty instant. sometimes I'll sit on a bike review. It could be on the hard drive for 2 months, and I'll go back to it, trim it again, and then upload it to YouTube. So yeah, it does take a little while to get it right.
But it does sound like you see the benefit of letting things sit for a little while, then coming back to them with fresh eyes and maybe sort of more critical eyes, you know, because I know what it's like. You can be obsessed, like, oh, this is such a great shot, I've got to keep it all in. But then you come back to it a week later and go, yeah, it's a good shot, but it's kind of taking a lot of time and I can cut it down and it's maybe not necessary.
Definitely. You will always find something that you can cut out, for sure. And I've even gone back on reviews that I've done before, and I've actually said the same thing twice. And so that is a disaster, because when it's on YouTube, that's it. It's out there forever. You can't take it back or cut it out. It's done. So it's got to be 100% right. Not only for me and my channel, but for the manufacturer. You've put their neck on the line for me to make that video. And I could, you can destroy a bike or, in some ways a brand. That should never happen. I think there's always ways of saying things, and there's definitely a skill to the way of saying things on camera and how you come across, whether it's on a negative aspect or a positive aspect. There's definitely a skill to doing that, and I think that's something which the manufacturers do pick up. They do understand and know how they want people to say the negative parts. Which is good.
Do you think maybe that's an important part of your brand, for want of a better word, is that you have to be seen to be fair in terms of your review, and it's very important that you project that sort of fairness. You may not like it, or you may think there are things that are not good about the bike, but you have to present it in a fair way. Is that?
I find it very easy now, for sure.
Yeah.
But in the past, I have, again, it's a skill to learn to how to deliver a bit of bad news about a bike so the viewer can make an informed decision on it, but at the same time, you're not slating it, because that's only my opinion. They might get on it and they might enjoy it. Going back to the RT, I liked the automatic gearbox. You may not. I'm right, and so are you. We're both right. Yeah. It's just an opinion, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I have in the past where I have made a mistake in the very early days, because all the bikes that I was riding were pretty good. I got to a stage where I thought I got to start saying something bad about these bikes. And I'd actually say, like, I'm trying to think of an example now. Let's say, the seat isn't very good, for example, and I feel uncomfortable. In fact, that wasn't the case at all, I'm ashamed to say. And I said it because I'd wanted to give my viewers some clarity that I'm telling the truth. And that was a mistake that I made in the beginning. But that was very few and far between. But I just felt every now and then I said something. I thought, well, actually, it wasn't that bad. But I over-egged it just to make myself feel like, the viewer show that I'm telling the right thing and telling the truth.
That sort of leads me to want to ask, what's your relationship to your YouTube comments? How do you deal with that? Are you the kind of person who tries to answer every comment or question?
Yeah, so I answer every comment to start off with. Like, every single comment I will answer. Even if it's a multiple thread comment, I'll just keep answering at the moment. That is getting more difficult, because sometimes I can spend an hour and a half a week, at least, probably, answering comments. And there will come a time, which I'm dreading this day, but there will come a time where I won't be able to do that anymore, because it just takes up so much time. Now, most of my comments are from people that are subscribed and like you strike up a relationship. I have had loads of odd comments in the past, like we all do, stupid comments like, oh, can you put on an American accent so I can understand you a bit better? I've had all sorts, and I'm not one for, well, I have got into a few slanging matches with people before who have said derogatory things, for example. But generally speaking, I'm not one of those. I mean, some people would just like it and they'll move on. For me, if it's absolutely stupid, then I just instantly get rid of them. I just remove them. I don't let it sit there because they're invading my happy space as far as I'm concerned. And I don't want any of that there. If it's constructive, I'm absolutely fine with that. Because you can learn off of anyone, and certainly your viewers, they're the people that have got to sit and watch it. So if they got something constructive to say, I'll take it on board and I'll action it as well.
How do you keep it fresh or maybe different? Or is it important to follow a set format?
Yeah, for me, I've always liked the erratic nature of my videos. They are always changing, as they always will be. That's generally down to me learning different ways of how I want to present or let that video go out. I want it to change all the time to keep it interesting for the viewer. But that is part of the reason why I do different videos nearly every week, is because I want to change it up. They don't know what's coming out on Sunday. Sometimes I don't. I've got a bank of videos which have gone back the last year, and I don't know what's coming out. So I always try and change up. I always try and do different shots. Even on the bike reviews, I try and sometimes I listen to myself and I think I need to change the way that I format or say that about that certain topic. So yeah, you're always learning. It's always going to be evolving. And more importantly, from my point of view, as long as I'm getting better all the time, and I still feel I've got a long way to go, but I am getting better all the time, then I'm happy. And I know my loyal subscribers will see that in me as well, as they have done over the last however long it's been.
Obviously, YouTubing, what you're doing it's a creative endeavor. It's a performance activity as well.
Yeah.
Where did this come from? Like, did you do anything like this at school, whether it was making videos or performing on the stage or anything like? Has it surprised you that you're comfortable doing this, or did you always know that you were going to do this?
I always had a hunger for being on stage. When I was a kid, I did a lot of drama clubs, which I absolutely adored. And I could go up on stage. I'd be nervous like anyone else, and I'd go up on stage. I mean, I'm not talented, not by any stretch, but it's something I really enjoyed, was the amateur dramatics. So yeah, I did that from when I was probably about 5 to about 12. One thing which I never seem to get across is that I think I'm quite funny. I don't know what my friends would say, but I am actually very funny. I've got a yearn to do stand-up comedy and write my own stuff. I just never went down that road. I was deaf when I was a kid anyway. I couldn't hear hardly anything due to needing grommets in my ears.
Okay.
So that was from, when did I have my first set of grommets? I must have been about 6, I think. But
oh wow, that's quite late.
Yeah, it is, and I was very lucky. I mean, I look back on, I'm very lucky in the respects of, I've got a video of me when I was from about 1984 to 86, and I actually can see myself lip reading my mum and dad, which is really odd, because when I was at school, they couldn't quite understand why I was zoning out and not listening to the teacher, and it's exactly why I couldn't hear nothing. Basically, not anything. I could, it's just a mumble, a very, strong mumble. But I guess the drama clubs that I used to do, they kind of brought me out my shell, and I just become. I don't want to say I'm a natural on stage, but I am in respects of I'm good at improvisation, so I could go on there and I'll do something which will just make the crowd laugh. Because that's what I was like as a kid, really. I was a bit of a clown, bit of a joker. But it worked. It worked really, really well. And as I got older, early teens, I got a job. I worked like stupid hours when I was from 16 to about 22 years old. And chasing girls as well. And obviously motorbikes come into it. I lost all of that. And there was always something that was missing in my life. And YouTube, for me, I'm so grateful to YouTube themselves for filling that hole, because it's what was always missing for me. And it means that I can, I guess, be that center of attention again. Not being famous, but I do like being well known. I like it when people come up and say, "Oh, I've seen your video and I love your videos." And and all that. I still get a buzz from that. It makes me feel a bit awkward at the same time, but yeah, because it's a bit of a strange thing that when they know you, but you don't know them.
Yeah, it's quite funny because I'm not in that position, but right from when I started this podcast, this was kind of the relationship I had with my guests, because I'd typically watched all their videos, and I'm like, yeah, I know you. You're on my computer screen like we're talking now on a conference call, basically. And it's like, well, I know you because I've watched all your videos, and I would forget, oh, you don't know me at all.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
at this, what do they call it? Parasocial relationship. And it's sort of very one way.
Yes.
And you think you have this normal relationship with someone because you've watched all their videos and now you're talking to them. It's like, oh, that's right. This is the first time we've actually talked. It is quite an odd experience. And you've got to sort of remind yourself that, you've only talked to Steve a couple of times. Just because you've watched a lot of his videos doesn't mean you really know him, Simon. But
I mean, it makes you feel so lucky to be alive in this time where we've got all this technology and it's relatively cheap to do. And although I never made it on stage or anything else, I've got a new stage now, which is arguably, it's easier to access and it's free.
Yeah, it's something that I like to come back from all the time on the podcast and just talk about this idea that whether you're into music, you can make your studio sounding album in your bedroom now. You can make your film with your camera. You can run a podcast. You can run a YouTube channel. And as you say, they're all relatively cheap compared to when we were growing up. Only sort of the elite got access to music recording studios or television shows or films,
Yes, absolutely.
And so the way that we can carve our own sort of creative path, you're absolutely right. We are lucky to be living in this time, and
definitely,
God forbid, what would happen if YouTube suddenly turned off? Can you imagine?
Oh, I'd be lost. It would ruin my life. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. But a lot of people say to me like, "Oh, everybody's doing YouTube now," and I think, well, actually, no, I don't know many people. Not everybody is doing YouTube. And when you think about it, it's only since about 2018 when 4K cameras come out and the audio situation sorted itself out with the way that it evolved, that it's still very early days in YouTube. If it's around for 50 years and we're only, let's say 8 years in, we're still catching the wave early. I guess one of my concerns really with the channel is that everything that I make on it goes back into it, but the more people that come into it, which is great, because obviously it creates a community, but it will dilute the amount that the viewers can watch.
Yeah, and finding the stuff that you want to watch. I mean, I guess it's a little bit what we touched on before in terms of coming to terms with your audience, the number of views you have. I mean, I think you have to be very clear about what you get out of it, like why you're doing this and what satisfaction you take personally. Like, I know my podcast is a very small podcast, but in terms of what doors it's enabled me to open, what relationships and friendships I've built out of the podcast, it's worth its weight in gold. I don't care how many people listen to it. I care about all the other things that this podcast has allowed me or enabled me to do.
Yeah, and it's something that it's something which you're a natural at as well, because you like the audio side of things as well, don't you, and all that.
Oh,
and
yeah.
A bit like me with the filming side. And when you've got that little passion project going, you don't really need a lot else in life, do you? That's a lovely hobby to have.
Yeah. And being able to talk to people like this, it's, every episode's different, every guest is different. Yeah, the energy for it, for me at least, it just doesn't stop for all those reasons.
Yeah. I think it's a shame in some ways that you can't make a proper job out of it. Do you know what I mean? It's hard to make good money from it to actually do it full time, because I'm bursting with things that I want to do. I'm sure you're the same with the podcast.
Yeah, there's only so many hours in a day. I mean, this is the problem. And to make it more successful, or to go down a commercially successful route, which is something that I've decided not to do with the podcast, that takes quite a lot of effort, and you may then also, you come across that there's that friction between what you want to make and what the audience may want.
Yeah.
Like I am, if I talk about the podcast, I'm this niche little subject of, like the whole Venn diagram of all the people who ride motorcycles and all the people who like or are interested in the topic of filmmaking. It's quite a small niche. I'm never going to be a Joe Rogan or whatever, because I don't, the topic that I'm talking about is just never going to attract.
It's very niche.
Enough. Yeah, it's not going to attract enough people for me ever to be a commercially successful podcast. And I'm really completely happy with that. It's not why I'm doing it. I guess this is why I come back to, you've got to decide yourself why you're doing it and what you get out of it. And then, you've sort of got to be happy with it. If you want to make a lot of money, then sure.
Sometimes you have to do things that you don't want to do.
Exactly.
To make a lot of money. And I've got, I'm ashamed to say it, but I've been sent a lot of products, which is in the drawer right next to me here, that I've never done anything with it, because I hate doing product reviews. Hate it with a passion. And it reached a point where I just had to shut it off. I said, no, I don't want any more of the products. Even when you're interested in something, I can't remember what it was today, but there's something I wanted. It's like one of these navigation systems that you can get. And I was interested in it. I thought, well, I wouldn't mind one of those for the bike. And as time went on, the emails went back and forward to this lady. And I said, yeah, send it over. Let's give it a go, and I'll make a video on it and share my views on it, etc. And she said, oh, yeah, that's great. And what we'll do is we'll send over the script to you tomorrow. And I thought, hang on a minute. I ain't doing that. I'm not doing no scripts. So that was the end of that. And recently with an insurance company as well, I was going to do a bit with them. And that become too clicky. They wanted more out of my channel. And I don't want my viewers to sit through that rubbish. That boring, monotonous thing that I would have to do. It's not fair on them. I would hate doing it. And it doesn't really bring in a lot of money anyway for what I would actually have to give. It would actually ruin some of my videos, and I don't, that's going backwards for me. So, I appreciate some people do that, and that's up to them, but I don't think that it's, never say never, but it's never something I would really want to do or go down that route.
Yeah. I want to try an odd question here. I haven't tried this question, I don't think, before, and I may struggle. I might have to frame it in several different ways. Is there a trade-off between the limits of your patience and the quality of video that you feel you can make?
The answer to that is yes, there is. But at the same time, I think whatever shot, let's talk about video, for example, whatever shot that you get, you may view it in that way, but you will never, ever be able to get into the mindset or the space of the viewer. So I might think of it as that shot was rubbish. They'll look at it and think, that told me everything that I needed to know. And you could try that 200 times, and all you're going to do is hit 200 different people. So does that make sense?
No, that does. Yeah.
So I think no matter what you do, it's going to click with some people and not with others. And I think you can get a little bit too anal with that sort of thing, really. I think I'm quite relaxed in life anyway, and I'm very much like, well, there's the shot, off it goes, and then we'll just see how it works out in the editing suite. So I have been like that in the past, and I've done multiple shots because I'm not happy with things, or something's gone wrong, or the lighting's awful, and but I think you reach a point where people know that it's YouTube. I am an amateur filmmaker, and you just got to send it sometimes, and you got to throw stuff at the wall sometimes to see what sticks, because that's where you really learn.
How long did it take you to get comfortable with the sound of your own voice, the look of your own face when you first started making the videos, or was that something that came naturally?
I'm laughing here because I'm not a vain person, but because of the whole stage thing and the drama thing we were talking about earlier, I just feel like I've come back. I've come back from that time. So I don't like the sound of my own voice, but I don't cringe at it at all. I'm happy with who I am. Being on camera, sometimes, I eat too many pork pies and it shows. But again, I am who I am, and I'm very comfortable with that. I think I've known a lot of people who start YouTube channels and are so clicky with it, whether it's the sound or the video, and they try it a couple of times and they just can't go ahead with it. So I'm glad I'm not like that. And I just say, I cringe at some of the videos I've made. We all do. It's all part of the journey. You've got to make your mistakes and put them right, and that's what. I've always had a philosophy in life that if you aim for a perfect job, you'll get a good job. That's something I've used in my professional career, really. So yeah, you got to switch off from it because it will drive you mad. And I've seen many people just give up in the end because of that very situation. Do you struggle with that at all?
I've yet to. Maybe Donald Trump likes the sound of his own voice, but I think most people don't like the sound of their own voice, right? I think if you're going to do this, whether it's video or audio, and you're working with your own face, your own voice, your own whatever, you've got to get to a point where I don't like it, but I can look past that and listen critically to what I'm doing or what I've made.
Yeah. But how boring would our hobbies be if we weren't evolving all the time and we had it perfect right out the gate? It would take all the fun out of it, wouldn't it?
Yeah. I have said this before on the podcast or when being on other podcasts. One of the motivations for me when I first started this was realizing that I was going to have to go on a bit of a growth journey, and that I wanted to be very open to the idea that how I could improve what I was doing in terms of the sound of the podcast, the design of the podcast, my ability to ask questions and things like that, to be a host. Like one of the most important things which I'm trying to do is to be more natural in the conversation.
I've been trying that a lot today, Simon. I've struggled a bit in the beginning, but it takes me a while to loosen up.
And me too, but if we think about today, like I've not talked on any other podcast for 25 minutes about motorcycles the way we did at the beginning of this episode, right?
Yeah.
And so that's not something I planned, but it's something that I've got to try and make myself open to. So just to go where the conversation wants to go, because it's a long form podcast, right? We're going to be over an hour once this thing's edited. By now, if my audience doesn't like me, they won't listen. So there's an audience out there that likes this kind of podcast, and I realize I have to put a little bit of me into it, not just ask questions. And also I have to listen to you and where you're going. And if you go off in a direction and that triggers a question in my head that I did not have written down, I need to be open to the idea of asking that question and following that conversation, that dialogue. So that's where I'm constantly trying to improve what I do as a host.
I think you're doing amazing, Simon. I know you do. It's a bit cringy to hear, but I think your podcast, the questions that you're asking people, the quality in the sound, which is so important on podcasts, I think you'll go in places, my friend. And I hope you do digress into other things as well, because I think you definitely got the talent there. You make sure you leave that bit in, all right? That's it. Say no more. On to the next question. It's an awkward one to respond to, isn't it?
Okay. Yeah, I won't say anything else. Okay. Next question, Steve. What aspects of your video making do you feel you've made the most progress in since starting 7 years ago?
I would say that the progress I've made really is probably getting the shots. That's what I live for. I love getting those shots of the bikes up close, the camera cars going along in time. I remember the days where I had to have a plug-in microphone lead, and the amount of times that I pulled my tripod over because I'd walk around the bike and over it goes down the hill. So, I mean, technology has helped me move on as well. The wireless mics that DJI are doing now are absolutely incredible. I've never been happy with my audio it's something I want to spend more time on. I'm sure somebody like you who specializes in that sort of thing would be able to tweak it absolutely perfectly. But I don't have the time, and I've got to concentrate on content more than what I have with audio. So if the picture's good, I feel I'm pretty much there because the camera does all the work. I don't know anything about ISO settings or all the settings on cameras. I'm very much a plug and play guy, keep it simple. But I know how important the content is. So that's what I concentrate on. I also think my reviews are just getting better and better all the time, more watchable, more keen on the eye, shall we say. Just different shots that I'm doing. I've done some really good ones recently, like the Honda GB350, where I've got a camera car following me. I'm talking on the bike, and for me, that is it. That is my passion project.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask you about the camera car because I didn't see it with that review, but I saw it with the Honda CBR 650R E-Clutch, another E-Clutch one, which was published the 29th of December 2024. So tell me, how did you do that? How did you actually do that?
So I had a friend of mine who is also insured with Honda. He's a professional cameraman. And he had the CL500 and I had the 650R, and we would just swap over the bikes. And what I'd done was very cleverly and very technically got some masking tape and put the camera on the back of his bike. It's a piece of cake. Just masking tape, basically.
So you just masking taped the camera onto the back of his bike?
Yeah. That's my secret out now. That's it. I shut the channel down now. So that's what happened there. But then he also has a car, and I've made up a wooden jig basically that can carry a camera on the window side, on the rear windows, and also the rear passenger seats. I've got a rig which I've rigged up so it can carry the camera without it being too obtrusive or sticking out too far. Just a thought that popped into my mind. I've never been a lover of 360 cameras. I don't like that fisheye look, and I feel very alone in that, which is fine. It's just my opinion, but I don't like having a nice flat image and then you get like the fishbowl image of a 360 camera, which is often sometimes shaking around as well. So that's why I do the more, I would say, more risky shots, really, because you got to get up pretty close to get the proper shot of a bike when doing that sort of thing.
So what was the inspiration to do that? Because it's the kind of shot that's typically associated with like a big budget film or commercial production. So,
wow, thank you. Amazing.
Why'd you go, oh, I've got to do that. I've got to try that. That's going to make a big difference.
It's purely because I just love the look of it. Simple as that, really. It does set me apart a little bit from other people as well. It's not easy to set up because obviously I've got to make sure Chris is available. I've got to make sure that he wants to do it because he doesn't get anything from it at all, apart from riding different bikes. And yeah, I just love getting those shots, really. I think it really does make me stand out from the crowd, which is important. Certainly in the early days, I needed to stand out from the crowd because so many people were doing it. I think it's put me in good stead with the manufacturers as well because they certainly notice it. Or certain manufacturers do. They deserve it. They're putting their neck on the line for me to have these bikes. And I think if a bike deserves it, I will do it. And if I can't do it, then I'll find a way to do it because I just really think some bikes deserve it.
Yeah, it's something I've talked about many times actually on the podcast about that look of watching someone ride is actually, it's very appealing to the eye. You know, Definitely. It's one thing to have that point of view from the helmet cam or a static image of the bike, but actually to see someone moving on the bike close up as well, I think it makes a big difference. Yeah.
Well, just to add to that, if I may, to see somebody riding the bike like what you're talking about, but chuck in audio as well, when I'm actually talking to the camera and riding it's just amazing. You have to see that GB350 video. I've got that down to a T. Basically, I got a side shot of me talking about the bike and also the end shot where I'm doing some sweeping curves. It's definitely one of the best shots that I've got on a bike, and I want to do a lot more of that.
So what's your filming setup now in terms of cameras, microphones, drones? What are you using these days?
Very simple. So I've got the DJI mic minis, which attach inside my helmet, and also obviously with interviews that I do, you can connect the two mics to the DJI 5, which I have. I also have the DJI drone, the Flip, which again has changed the ball game. It's made it more enjoyable for me to do trip videos because I can capture views that you can just never do before. It's been an absolute wonderful thing. And actually, it's given me a hobby inside of a hobby, because whenever we go out down the beach, take a dog for a walk, out comes the drone, and I'm flying that around. So that keeps me happy for 10 minutes. Very simple. And just a DJI 5, and I use my phone, which is an old Samsung S10 for the photos, which still does a great job. Well, I think it does. I mean, I'm no professional. I don't know what looks good and what doesn't, but to me, it looks pretty good. It's quite crisp and clean. I'm very simple on that side of things. It's one camera setup.
And what are you using to do your editing? I know that's often a question that the moto vlogging community talks about. So what do you use now? And is it the same piece of software that you've always used?
Yeah, I've always used Filmora. That's what I'm used to. I sometimes feel that I should try and move on, but in all honesty, it's what I'm used to. So dogs need tricks if I do move on to DaVinci or some other program. My brother keeps on telling me to go to Premiere Pro, which apparently is really difficult to use, but I'm happy with that. I'm very, very simple on that side of things. So I don't really, and this might be a subject which people might disagree on, but I don't really look at my equipment as being an important thing for the video. I more see it as a content thing, whereas a lot of people have to have the latest cameras, this, that, and the other. I mean, I think the cameras do it all for you these days. With the Action 5, it will sort out the lighting issues and the focus and things like that. So very, very simple, and I pride myself on that, really being a simple shoot. I don't have any handlebar mounts, so I don't do the two shots between, so that people aren't looking at me and just kind of cutting in between. Because again, in my view, I think most people want to be on the bike with you, soaking it up. They don't want to see me. They're not interested in that. As good looking as I am, but they don't want to see me, do they? So very simple setup, helmet camera. And for the bike shots, I've got a selfie stick, which I move around the bike as I'm going around. So
okay. So my next question is, is there something missing from your video production kit bag? But it sounds like you'd be quite a tough sell to convince you to buy something else.
I don't think there is for me. I mean, maybe somebody might show me something one day and I think, oh, I quite like that. A good friend of mine, the Mindful Motorcyclist, he's recently bought a 360 camera. Again, I'm not interested in that. I just want a nice flat image. I don't want to go from a flat image to a fisheye effect. Yeah, so I'm happy with my setup. I don't want to make it too difficult. I don't want to be in a position where I know how to do something perfectly, but I've got to faff around to get that perfect. Because I don't have the time these days.
Yeah,
that I used to have. So, believe me, when the DJI 2 came out, it was known for being absolutely disastrous on the audio front, and it really was. And I literally spent 4 days trying to set this blooming camera up when it was just never going to happen anyway. And it was painful. But now I'm plug and play, keep it simple, concentrate on the content, concentrate on getting different types of video, different formats, keep tweaking within a comfort zone that I'm happy with. Basically, I went from GoPro all the way up to whenever the Action 5 came out, I think it was 2024. So I had a GoPro 9 all the way up to then. And then after that, I've gone DJI throughout my camera bag, shall we say.
Yeah. It seems like DJI is the popular choice these days.
Definitely. Yeah.
It's unusual now to find someone singing the praises of GoPro. I mean, I have GoPros, but it's just because of what I've got. I can't really justify replacing them.
Yeah. GoPro had it sewn up for so many years, and they really do. I mean, I'd still argue that GoPro is probably a better image than DJI, but it's too hit and miss. I mean, I didn't get a lot of problems, but if you lose that bit of filming that you do that day, you're never ever going to get it back. You know, so if I got a bike for a day and it goes wrong, that's it, and it's gone. And it has happened with GoPro. You know, I have had that probably twice, I think, where I lost the footage or the cards wiped itself or whatever. Just can't afford that to happen. And when I had the GoPro, I always pushed record and I thought, well, is it actually recording? So you're on your bike thinking, right, can I see the audio lines? Can I see it actually happen? And then sometimes it would just freeze and you think, well, I've got to carry on. Is it recording or not? And often it wasn't. So I didn't have a lot of problems, but I had no faith in it. And it took me a long time when I got the DJI products. When I push record, I know now that it's actually happening. But the confidence took me probably 6 months to get that confidence.
It's a lot for one person to do, which I'm going to ask one question here, which it's only just occurred to me. Have you ever had any ambition to make a video, a film with someone else? Because what you make is all about you.
Yes.
You're kind of at the center. Even, okay, maybe when you go off on a trip ride, there's a bloody Cornish pastry or something that's also part of the video. It's not just you, but there's all your mates as well, and you capture some of their dialogue. But if you think historically, filmmaking has been very much a collaboration of people. There's so many people involved with making a film historically. And nowadays, the default is actually to make things just by ourselves. But I'm asking more and more of my guests this question, you know, are you interested, have you ever wondered about collaborating, talking to someone, you know, someone in the community, in the vlogging community, and saying, hey, why don't we make something together?
That's a really good question. I've never even thought about it, but now you've said that, I would like to do that, yes. Yeah. I mean, I've got a good friend in Cornwall, Saddlebag 73. When we go out together, I know that he's one of those people that I can stop 5 times on the bike and set up the camera and he fully gets it. He fully understands. And I've got other friends that don't understand. And some friends that just say, oh, come on, let's get on with it. Which ruins my day, because I like filming as much as I actually like filming more than bike riding, I think. Yeah, that's a bit of a strange one. But yeah, I think that is the case these days. So yeah, no, I haven't done any of that, but I'd definitely be open to that. Yeah, I'd definitely like to try that. Good idea. Yeah.
Okay, well, think about that. Okay, we are on the home straight, Steve. I just got a couple of final questions. One which you've been asked to do some homework for, which is with regards to your own filmmaking. Who have you taken inspiration from, or who would you recommend others to watch?
In the early days, it was Royal Jordanian. That's when I kind of got into the YouTube thing. And I just found his videos almost hypnotic. That somebody can ride around London and just have a camera. And he had so many things right. You know, he got the audio right from the sound of his bike. His bike sounded amazing anyway. And London, there's always something going on. So in the early days, when I used to do my observations videos, which I absolutely ripped off of him, by the way, because that's what he called his videos, that's how it started for me, I would say. Adam Riemann, who everybody knows, I mean, his filmmaking's absolutely fantastic. I don't have a lot of time to watch his stuff, but what I have seen, again, is brilliant. He puts you in sort of an emotional state. He has a nice soft voice, which kind of switches you off and immerses you into the camera, and his filmmaking is superb. Similarly to Saddlebag 73, he's a friend of mine. I'm not just saying it because he is a friend, but some of the videos he's done, such as the rides through time, I've always enjoyed. The amount of effort that he puts into that was really impressive. One which you may like as well, possibly, is somebody called Inside the Edit. Have you ever heard of him?
I'm aware of it. It's one of those things I know I must watch. Yeah, I know what you're referring to. Yeah.
Yeah, he does a lot of, I think he's a professional editor. I find his stuff quite complicated from an amateur point of view, but also it gives me a carrot as well, which I'm kind of trying to get to. And he kind of words things in a way that makes sense to me. You know, I kind of click with what he's saying, and I learn a lot from it. And I'm trying to put some of what he says into my videos. Easier said than done, but I'm going to try. Colin Furze, who is somebody who makes all sorts of weird and wonderful things in his workshop. A massive channel, multi-millions of subscribers. He's doing really well. I'm ashamed to say this, but some of my own stuff I like looking back on and thinking, oh, I got that shot. Like the GB350 video, for example. You know, I just love looking at that, thinking, I want to do that again. I wanted to keep on doing that. I have a lot of respect for Itchy Boots. I don't watch her, believe it or not, but I think her format is absolutely brilliant. The way that she wakes up in the morning, she shows you what she's having for breakfast, and the way that she films her journey is really good. And one thing I was going to mention is Austin Vince videos. I really enjoy the rawness of those back in the day that he shot, Terra Circa, etc. And also another film which I did find absolutely fascinating, which is on YouTube, was Dylan Rickarama. Does that ring a bell?
Oh, yeah, across the Darien Gap in the boat.
What a piece of video that is. Mind-blowing. I heard of that through Bruce Smarts, one of his podcasts you've had on recently, haven't you? And I found I watched that video. I was absolutely fascinated by it, and I just can't believe that a film that good can't really take off and you make a few quid on, because it was absolutely superb. And of course there's so many others as well, but they're the ones that kind of stick out really.
Okay, Steve, the question you've been waiting for. Does the film making enhance or diminish the pleasure of a motorcycle ride for you?
Enhance. Easy peasy. So a lot of people say that they go out without a camera. I prefer to have a camera. I adore filming no matter what it is. I mean, I still get times where I ride without it, but I'd much prefer to be making a YouTube video of some description when I'm out and about. No doubt about it.
Thanks so much for being my guest today, Steve. Now's your chance to tell folk where they can find and follow you online.
So they can find me on YouTube as Exeter Rider, and I also have an Instagram, which I don't use a lot, which is Exeter Rider 3. But apart from that, that's it.
Super. Look, thanks again for being here today. Take care and ride safe.
And you too. Thanks so much for having me, Simon. It's something I've always wanted to do, was to tell my story, which I've never really been able to have the chance to do. So it means the world to me for you letting me come on to your show, which I think is absolutely brilliant, by the way. I think you're very professional at not only asking the questions, but also all the technical side of it as well is really impressive. And I wish you all the best for you and your podcast in the future.